Thank you for listening to this edition of the Christian Car Guy podcast. It's brought to you by Mr. Quick Pick Lock and Road. Mr. Quick Pick is the opportunity for you to start your own roadside assistance business. If you have more investment energy than investment capital, stop working for someone else. Mr. Quick Pick Lock and Road is the opportunity to have your own home-based business, working directly with auto clubs and leveraging a national brand and marketing strategy. Mr. Quick Pick helps people who have run out of gas, locked their keys in their car, or need a jump start. An A-plus rated company with the Better Business Bureau and the 3-time winner of the Members' Choice Award for customer service. This could be the chance you've been looking for to serve others at the point of crisis and even share your walk with Christ. So whether you're looking for a business opportunity or in need of emergency roadside assistance, choose Mr. Quick Pick Lock and Road. MrQuickPick.com. Now sit back and enjoy this podcast of the Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
I have lived in a junkyard.
You've lost that driving feeling. Oh, that driving feeling.
Christian Car Guy Radio Show.
I say this calls for action, and now, nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud. You got to nip it in the bud.
Negotiations Bible style. Bible style. Bible. Negotiations Bible style.
In junkyard society, we're repelled by all propriety, humility and modesty, good manners and sobriety. In junkyard society.
Bob's first and 10 yard savings, but it's junkyard savings.
You dug deep to find that song, brother. You had to pilfer through the archives pretty heavy to come up with
We found a couple
songs.
of different junkyard songs there, but buying parts for my prized 95 Dodge Dakota from a junkyard, why, I would never think of it. A pepino cheese sandwich, maybe. If you go to ChristianCarGuy.com, you'll understand that what I just said a little bit better, because we have these 10 parts that really are the maximum savings from getting a junkyard. We're going to get to all that, but prejudiced right here, it can get expensive, because, you know, my decision clearly to use used parts was one of the best I've ever made in my life, because I've been riding around on an engine from Bob's junkyard now for over a year, and it actually runs better than it ever has. And I'm on new tires that I got from Bob. Actually, this is my second set. So for 8 years.
Previously enjoyed
tires. I've been riding around on these previously enjoyed tires for over 8 years. And even my seatbelt that wore out at 380,000 miles, a little buckle thing broke inside. I can't imagine how it couldn't go 400,000, but anyway.
Don't make them like they used to, huh?
Even my seatbelt came from Bob's, and so I would bet if you were to look in the seat of my car, you couldn't tell which of my seatbelts actually came from 109. You pull it. So on today's show, we have Bob's first and 10, the 10 parts that you can save the most on, but we also have lots of Jesus, labor, love updates and prayer requests. But Bob, we want to go a little deeper than that.
I love your topic today. I didn't know exactly where you were headed when we were going over it before, but it didn't take long for you to shine the light on it for me.
Well, the idea is prejudice, right? We're prejudiced against using used parts. I can remember back people calling me just going crazy because their insurance company wanted them to use used parts to do a repair. And I'm like, what are you thinking? I mean, if you were to see, because I worked in a parts department for so long, I would see the new fenders come in with dents all over them. The new fenders did, you know, because they were shipped, and in shipping, they would get the little dings and all this stuff. And then, you know, you could get a brand new fender but anyway. So there's so much prejudice out there, but Jesus came into a world of prejudice, and the Jews especially considered most anyone else beneath them, if you think about it, especially in matters of God. But, oops, So do I. Many Christians like me, we can't help but think, well, they don't know God because, So the story of the dog woman in Matthew 15 and Mark 7, it's given both there is especially troubling to me. And I'm going to read you the Matthew one, but in a minute, I may reference to the Mark one as well. So in Matthew it says, and Jesus went away from there, and he withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon, and behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. But he did not answer her a word, and his disciples came and begged him, saying, send her away, for she is crying out after her. You get the disciples, man. This Gentile woman, you got to get her out of here. He answered. Now, I added that. That's not in the Bible. he answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. And he answered, it's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And she said, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Then Jesus answered her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it done to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed immediately. And Mark, similarly, only he uses a little different labels. He calls her actually a Gentile Syrophoenician woman. So he's still got the labels. So the thing is, you read that, you'll note that Mark has got these labels that she's a Gentile, and Matthew has this label that she's a Canaanite. And all week long, I've been pondering this because it's quite troubling to me that Jesus would essentially call this woman a dog. And far from the full grace of Jesus, Jesus is full of grace. I'm his favorite. It's just hard for me to picture how he could have done that. So I knew there was something deeper here, something I really needed to roll around in my mind. And now I believe I'm starting to see a clearer picture of what was going on. I believe he was reflecting back to his audience, both the disciples and the woman, because the disciples clearly wanted to send her away. They had some prejudice going on. You see, I think he was reflecting back the agreement that they were living under, the essentially the bondage that they were under from Satan. You see, Satan's strategy many times is to get us to make an agreement with his lies. Now, this is not the pimento cheese sandwich that we talked about a little earlier, but other lies. These lies he slips into your head like, she couldn't possibly know how to help me. She's a woman and she works at a junkyard. What's up with that? But Satan's kingdom is the kingdom of lies, and Jesus is the kingdom of truth. So if Satan can get you to make an agreement with a lie, you have now become, whether you realize it or not, a traitor to the kingdom of truth, the kingdom of Jesus. So breaking those agreements will, in fact, set you free. And in this story, Jesus purposely traveled all the way north to Tyre, which is way up there in Gentile territory. It wasn't like he was in there amongst the Jews. And this trip was about 60 miles. And here among the Gentiles, I believe he had a serious lesson for his disciples on prejudice and faith. You see, in that moment, if you allow me to propose what I think may have been going on, this woman who had fallen at his feet, that's quite a scene. She'd fallen at his feet and was looking up in his eyes. And the disciples were also behind her, looking into Jesus' eyes. And then I believe there was this look. And I think it's a look that only Jesus can give. And if you've known Jesus for a while, I bet you've had that look. And the look that he gave was saying, you believe this. Let the children be fed first, for it's not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dog. He's looking at the lady, but he's also looking at the disciples like, you wanted to send her away. You see, the statement is true, I believe, but Jesus is asking something inside the statement. And what he's asking is, who are the children and who are the dogs? You see, the answer we discover by what happens is that the people of faith, in this case the woman, is actually the children. And you're not a child by who you were born to or other things, but you're a child of God by your faith. And so what he's showing and illustrating to the disciples is clearly that this woman's faith makes her a child, right? Because the only people that could get healing from Jesus That's the reason why he had to move out of his hometown. The only people that could get healing from Jesus were the ones that believed he was the Son of God. Other than that, you don't fit. You don't see the deal. So, now that I've had all that said, my question, this is a live show, and I love it when people call in and share their stories, is when did you fall under this type of prejudice, where you were in the dark and God used some story to enlighten you as to where you were mistaken? And I'll go first, but then you call in at 866-348-7884. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or at least I went to high school in Albuquerque. And as you might imagine, or maybe you don't know, that in Albuquerque, actually the Spanish-American population outnumbers the gringo population, of which I was a gringo. And the Spanish-American population in high school, especially at that time, ran in gangs quite often. And it wasn't unusual for me to get beat up at the hands of these gangs, which led me to not just really favor. I didn't have a lot of grace when it came to Spanish-American people. It's honest. It's how I felt. However, my first real job that I got working in a car dealership was for Gallus Oldsmobile Cadillac on Central Avenue in Albuquerque. And there I went to work with a whole host of Spanish-American people, one of which I will never, ever forget, was one of the most gracious, most brilliant parts people I've ever met. His name was Rosie Gonzalez. And oh, my word, was that man good to me. Oh, my word, did that man teach me about auto parts. Oh, my word, did I learn that just because he was Spanish-American, I'd made this agreement, you see, with Satan, that this was a bad guy. I didn't have nothing to learn from him. How did that work out in your life? 866-348-7884. So much more Christian Car Guy Show coming up. Stay tuned.
Well, if you ever plan to motor west,
In junkyard society, we're repelled by all propriety, humility and modesty, good manners and sobriety. In junkyard society.
Yes, we have our good friend Bob, our Christian junkyard guy, with us today at Junkyard Society.
It's amazing. You've just shining the light on things. And when you first mentioned it today, I was like, I don't know if that fits me at all. But there's so many predisposed ideas and concepts and stuff we carry around in our head. I mean, I used to have a real strong feeling about people that had been in prison, convicts. I had a strong feeling about that. And, God has used several people in my life to erase, completely nullify, and turn that one completely around. And I have some awesome people in my life that have been to prison. And just to get it right out there, there's probably a time or two that I could have found myself there too, brother.
Only by the grace of God. And
yes, sir.
I have a dear friend who has been in for 13 years, and talk about a strong feeling. I mean, going over there to visit him, I never thought I would ever be in such oh my word, it scared me to death, going through all that, and all the detectors and the people looking at you and whatever. But today, it's one of the joys of my family's life is actually to go there and to go through that experience. And it's all part of how God is freeing us from these prejudiced ideas, which have to do with junkyard parts and have to do with whether or not you should buy a Honda or a Toyota. And we would love your story. How did God set you free? 866-348-7884 is a number to call in and share. We would love to hear yours.
I have a gentleman in my life, and I catch him talking in the way I used to think about convicts. Convict this, convict that. And I have to remind him that 4 or 5 years ago, if you'd got caught doing what you were doing, you would have been a convict too, and probably still be in there. And just because he didn't get caught, he feels like he is somehow superior. And, God has really thumped me in the head about this. And another really strong. I used to just had nothing for anybody that had let an addiction get a hold of them. And,
Oh, wow.
addicts. That was terrible. When I had been one myself. But, addicts were just, it was. And then after the thing with Rob, and I saw that, it can happen to anybody in any situation, and is all around us. It's on the news now. I mean, every night they have a State of Addiction series right here in Winston-Salem on the local news, and the opiates it's just a nationwide thing, and you hear it every day. But I used to think that anybody on those opiates, that heroin, oh my goodness, that's how could that possibly? How could people let that happen to themselves? But my problem had been with cocaine, so the heroin had to be worse. You know what I mean? So we always try to place ourselves, strategically. When I was around some treatment programs and stuff, the guy he was thinking that he was better than the guy that was smoking crack, and he was telling somebody how much better he was doing than the guy that was smoking crack as he carried his grandma's TV to the pawn shop to sell. I'm doing better. I'm not on that crack. But we try to, put somebody else in a position that's a lot worse than ours. No matter what. And it's just amazing how God worked on me and showed me how the opiate thing can happen to absolutely anyone. Rob had such a bright future, and there were so many things waiting in front of him, and I'm just grateful. Yesterday was Rob's birthday, and that's one of the reasons he's real heavy on my mind today. But, he got the ultimate healing, and I can never complain about that. I'll miss him and just can't wait to see him again, but just got to be a little bit patient to get there.
Well, you're listening to the Christian Car Guy Show. Today we're talking about Bob's top 10-yard savings. And so junkyard. And we realize that there's some prejudice about junkyards. And actually, I've had people say, you have Bob Young on your Christian radio show? Is he a Christian? They've seen your commercials, Bob, and they're like, there's no way that guy, dial 788-9122 could be.
Well, people that knew me in the old days, there's a lot of them that are really amazed by my stance for God, and I was really amazed when you asked me to be on this show. I was like, doesn't he know? But you helped turn my life around. The people at church that took that galactically huge chance on me when they asked me to work with the young people. I mean, at that point in my life, my language was terrible. I had to take and put a rubber band around my arm, from being at the junkyard. And, I'd fallen into that, it's a junkyard, you're supposed to talk like that. No, you're not. There are better words to describe your feeling other than words that you shouldn't say. And when we decided we were going to start working with the young people, I had to put the rubber band on my arm. Every time I said a bad word, pow, pop myself on the wrist with the rubber band. And I had a pretty big welt, but within a week I was talking a whole lot better, And, but the people at church took a chance and let Bob work with the young people, and it just really worked out great. You took a chance, had me on the radio. It's been a blessing for me. And, I just thought all things like that were, erased from my life. I could never do that because of my past,
That's the beauty of what Jesus did for all of us. So we want your story. 866-348-7884 is the number to call in and share your prejudice. Maybe your prejudice against Hondas or domestic cars. 866-348-7884. We're going to get these top 10s. We got Jesus, labor, love stuff to talk about. So much more. Christian Car Guy Show coming up.
junkyard, where the weeds eat up the rain. If you get anything to
Our very own junkyard guy, Bob's top first and 10 yard savings. First and 10 yard, or it could be junkyard savings. We're going to get to those in a minute, but we clearly are out for your story of when you were prejudiced, when you thought you had something. We've shared a little of ours. We would love to hear yours. 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. And, of course, I want to mention the website, ChristianCarGuy.com, and there we now have this contest, which is a wonderful opportunity because actually Red Roof, originally I thought there was only going to be 6 overnight stays that we were going to give away. But as it turns out now, I have 12. And so there's more chances to win. All you have to do is go pick your favorite Christian Car Guy Theater episode. You register right there. There's no purchase necessary. You just have to be over 18 to win. And like I said, we got 12 of those certificates to give away, and very few people registered last week. So your chances are really, really good right now. And we're going to be doing that by the end of July there. So you won't have to wait long to find out if you won. And we're going to the winners are going to be selected by random drawing. It's not going to be by who picked my favorite Christian Car Guy Theater episode. So go to ChristianCarGuy.com now because there's hundreds of articles. Of course, this idea of the Bob's top 10 part savings are there, as well as this whole discussion of what I call the dog woman of Canaan, who turned out to not be, all there at ChristianCarGuy.com. But also I would clearly talk about the Jesus Labor Love. Well, there's podcasts of the Christian Car Guy Theater, too, by all means, so you can listen to all those episodes. But the Jesus Labor Love is car repair labor for single moms and widows, and to say this ministry has grown over the last few years is an understatement. It's unbelievable what God has given us an opportunity to and often we go on and we talk about the prayer requests that we have, and believe me, we have some on the Jesus Labor Love, but I thought it would be nice to share with you what I posted at the website this week, which are some of the praises of how the Jesus Labor Love met some needs this week. And there was a single mom who needed a car ready for a long trip. She was needing to move, and she had a car that was really uncertain. And she drove all the way to Winston-Salem because we had Matt Haley with Haley European Imports worked on it for her. Actually did her rear brakes and all that completely no charge. Matt did that all himself. I mean, how awesome was that? And this lady was so thrilled that she's going to be able to take this long trip and be able to do that. And then we had a homeless man who had actually his teacher at a vocational school called me and said, wow, we've got this need. This man got into trying to fix this himself, and now it's a disaster, and can you help it? And Allegria's Car Repair here in Wahlberg took this particular one on, and, Patricio stepped up way above and beyond to I don't even want to know how many hours he invested in this man's car. And then one of our listeners actually called in a couple of weeks ago and gave us their credit card information, actually. And we, because you can go to ChristianCarGuy.com, by the way, and donate, but this particular band didn't want to do that. So he called in and we got that, and he was able to help pay for the parts that this homeless man's teacher was so impressed with him that he could get a job if he could get a car. So now he's got that car, and I talked to him this week. There's a Utah lady, and I had a wonderful donation a couple months ago from a lady in Utah who said, I want this money to go specifically for somebody in Utah who has a need. There was a lady called in, needed a set of tires in Utah. And Bob, you'll be happy to know, you know what kind of tires she got? And she suggested to me, she said, I can get these used tires. And previously enjoyed tires. And so the lady from a few months ago, her donations went to put those tires on this lady's car. Then we had this family, this one kind of blows me away. It's a God moment. They'd had 2 fires and lost everything. And Bob, you can understand that. And then their husband lost their job, and they had a fairly late model car, and the transmission went completely out, and it was out of warranty. And oh my word. And they had AAA towing, and they had towed it to this place, and I had lined up for somebody else to do the work, But I have to tell this story. There's this place called Axles Plus in this area here in Winston-Salem, and that's where they towed it. And AAA said, no, we won't tow it again. They, even though they were members or whatever. And so I thought, well, why don't I just call Axles Plus? And so I called Tony over there at Axles Plus, and oh man, he was so nice. He goes, I wish you'd called me before. He was ready to. And he jumped in there. He's helping the family that's had the 2 fires, and that's so exciting. But my favorite one that the Lord worked through this week was, we've talked about this poor woman whose husband chased her across these states. And oh my word, was the car beaten beyond recognition, and it needed so much work. In fact, I told you that the person that called me, which I can now tell you is Noel Auto Repair in Wendell, North Carolina. He's the one who did it all. His name is Maurice. He called and said, Robbie, this car is evidence, man. Whoever is coming after this woman, this is dangerous. And between 109 You Pull It Bob, all the parts that you guys got to Noel, but we had to get all the way to Wendell, North Carolina. Between Bob and Maurice, it took us nearly 5 weeks to get the car put back together because the whole rear axle had fallen out and all that. I can't believe it, man. As she's on the road, she got on the road last Thursday afternoon, and I just wanted to praise God that this looked like one above and beyond anything we could ever figure out how to handle. But between what Bob's done, somebody donated their time to drive the parts all the way to Wendell. Noel, God just came through in so many different ways. And so with all that said, I'm very, very grateful. But you might imagine that as you help more people, you know what happens? Word spreads. And like Jesus, they're all coming, so the applications are coming in like crazy. And our funds have been depleted tremendously through all that's happened. So we're back in that situation where actually our bank account's lower than it's been in a long, 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 long time. And the requests are coming in like crazy. So if the Lord puts it on your heart, clearly what I'm really wanting is your prayers, that God will meet the needs however he meets them. And it's often, like 7 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I don't know how he does it, but he makes it happen. But we also want to mention that we have a ministry that reached out to us. It's called Redeemed Joy, and they're in Concord, North Carolina, and they work with trafficked women. That's their ministry, is to work with recovering women that have been involved in the trafficking industry. And they have gotten so many opportunities to help ladies that they're needing a second van. And so if somebody has a 7-passenger or more van that they would like to donate, this is where it would go, is to these people trying to help these women who's been trafficked here in Concord, North Carolina. So again, it's all there at ChristianCarGuy.com under the Jesus Labor Love. There's a place where you can donate a car. There's a place where you can donate. You can certainly pray. And again, I'm blessed out of my socks, aren't you, Bob, by all that God has done to help these ladies and families.
It's amazing what can happen and what has happened, and where we started, and where it's got to. It's just amazing, what God's done, and you want to mention me and what I've done, and I kind of get aggravated because I don't really need any blessings. I've been blessed so much, and I don't want credit. I'm so fortunate to be where I am and have the opportunity to help people. And, I didn't always think like that. When I first started, I just wasn't that type of person. I've always been kind of a good-hearted person, but you've helped me nurture that side of myself, and it's kind of blossomed a lot more than what it used to be.
Believe me, there's no better feeling than to be on the other end of the phone when that person's, going down the road with a car that they didn't think that they could recover from. In fact, another one I didn't even mention was, I don't know if you remember, there was a lady who got stranded up in Virginia, and she needed a whole engine, and it took us forever. I think it was 4 months before it finally got repaired, and then she had something else happen to the transmission. And so just yesterday, we got that fixed. between some help and people donate and all that went on. I mean, it's just more than amazing. And again, I am blessed out of my socks. At times I'm stressed out of my socks because I'm trying to figure out, Lord, what are we doing here? How did I get involved in this? And how did, wow. But how many times that I get to see his hand? And again, it's the prayers and listening to people give Jesus credit, because that's what we really are looking for, Bob, is to hear the ladies or the families say, wow, God came through in this and he can come through in our practice. So we got so much more Christian Car Guy Show coming up. We got some calls coming in to share their story, and we would love to hear yours. 866-348-7884.
Bring your doubts, bring your fears, bring your hurt, and bring your tears. There'll be no condemnation here. You are holy, righteous, and redeemed. And every time I fall, there'll be those who will call me a mistake. Well, that's okay, 'cause I hear a voice and he calls me redeemed. When others say I'll never be enough, and greater is the one living inside of me than he who is living
Bob's
in the world.
10. First and 10-yard savings. We're going to get to that in a minute, baby. I picked that song for a very specific reason, because we realize that it's easy enough for us to be jealous or have prejudiced ideas about other people. But what Jesus was getting at, I believe, for this lady was her own prejudice about herself. And that's why I love that song, Greater, because greater is the one living inside of me than he's living in the world. And people say this about me, people say that about me. And after a while, Satan gets you to believe certain things about yourself, and those agreements are prejudice just as much as you feel about the convict or the whatever. You're and believe me, when you have those addictions, and we all have them, and anybody that doesn't, I would say take another look. Satan gets in there and he'll remind you that you are this and you are that and this. And when you make those agreements, those are deadly.
The exact thing we were talking about a while ago, my past. Satan convinced me that because of my past, I had nothing for God's people. I couldn't work with youth because of my past. I couldn't, there's just no way that could happen. There's no way I could be on Robbie Dilmore's radio show because I was a wretched sinner. And Bob, that disqualifies you from ever working with young people or being on the radio. I was just sure of it. He had me fully convinced.
And that was the Bobism that I quote to people all the time. It says, and this was Bob's own saying, which was, that which I thought made me disqualified made me uniquely qualified.
Exactly. I mean, that's just the story of my deal.
And that's where brokenness comes in. The thing of it is you're redeemed. And as we see that Jesus sees us in a completely different light, and God sees us without that, he sees his son when he looks at you. That's really hard to see. But there's a piece of that prejudice that I didn't want anybody to miss, that Jesus was speaking to the disciples to say, look what you guys have been thinking about this lady. But he was trying to help the lady to see what she'd been thinking about herself as well. And he is out to bring the truth. He is out to bring the kingdom of God. And sometimes it comes through things that may appear harsh, but by meditating on that stuff, there's something to learn. But we do, Bob, we promised these top 10. So we got to talk about it. And number one on the list, which I couldn't say more about, was used starters.
We do very well with our starters, and starters is something that we can check. We have a testing machine where we can hook it up and actually engage the starter and see the solenoid, thrust out and spin, and we can be relatively positive that our starter is good every time. and that's such
Yeah,
a great feeling, because some of the parts at the junkyard,
you don't necessarily
you
know until
don't
you get
know.
them.
Exactly.
Which gets to number 2, which is engines, which again, Old Red's engine came from Bob's yard, and I can just tell you that my other engine, it had a tick, and it would burn oil. And there were 2 or 3 things that were about that engine that were just never really quite as cool. This engine that was used, previously enjoyed, I mean to tell you, it's sweeter than the engine that I had from the factory from certain standpoints. That you know, I don't know if it'll go as long as that one did. Well, you will find out. But however long it goes, man, I'm riding. And then number 3 on the hit list is air conditioning compressors.
We do, especially right now, as the temperature goes up, the AC compressor sales go, through the roof. And it's a very reliable part, too. Occasionally we'll have one come back, but it's something that's...
Believe me, if you go buying new AC compressors, a lot of people don't realize how many, because I worked in new parts all those years. Believe me, you don't know how many new starters came back, how many new batteries came back, how many new air conditioning compressors. So, there's situations that happen, but that's when you find out if you're working with somebody with integrity or not. Taillights are number 4 on the hit parade, and they're huge, right? Because taillights, they don't wear out.
Yeah, they're still red. You know what I mean? You can, there's not... Now, they will fade a little bit sometimes, and, they'll show to be a little bit different. But tail lights, headlights, turn signal lamps, and everything.
You can save a gob of money.
Significant savings are in store, yes.
And one of my favorites is number 5 on the list, door glass. Because door glass is door glass, but a lot of people are going around with glass in their car. They don't have to, because they could get used glass really inexpensive.
And you're on the commercial buying a door glass from us when we're on the front porch with the commercial there. You're our door glass customer, I believe, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, but door glass is something that we can sell very economically, and you don't even have to warranty a glass, because if you can see through it, and it's in one piece,
yeah,
you're good.
Number 6 is wheels. Wheels are something that, wow, I mean, really, really expensive. You go buy factory aluminum wheels, and, there's a place where people can save big money, and you can tell, again, if a wheel's round, which, that doesn't sound like it's that big a deal. It's a huge deal. Wheels have to be exactly round.
It is. You can get a bad wheel. I mean, you really can, and but we try to spin them and look at them and watch the way they roll. And if there's not a wobble, you've got a really good shot. And once again, one of the ultimate savings is buying used wheels instead of a brand new set of, the factory wheels.
And another one you may not have thought of is bumpers. With these plastic bumpers, not only can you get a bumper, but you can get one that's already the color of your car, that has the type of paint that came from the factory, that is going to stay adhered, and it's already been, previously enjoyed, but it's just as good a bumper as any of them.
A lot of times we have trouble matching people's colors, but sometimes it'll work. Sometimes there's a dead match for you right there. But the chrome bumpers, it amazes me on some of the older stuff. I mean, with a lot of years on it, and some of those chrome bumpers still just look so good. And people see them and definitely want to buy them. I sold one off of a Toyota truck the other day. The truck hadn't been there, a day, and the guy saw it, and he was just so happy to find a bumper that looked that good on an older truck. And
there you go. And then
another happy customer.
Number 8, we use a lot of in the Jesus Labor Love, and that's used transmissions.
Yes, sir. And just to be 100% completely honest, it is the iffiest part in the junkyard. We can get them up forwards and backwards, but many times we can't get them up to 60 miles an hour and see if all the gears shift right. It is a little bit, it's my least favorite sale. But
number 9 was a pimento cheese sandwich, which we admitted was a lie. We had to throw a lie in there. Number 10 radio. So radios, a lot of people are riding around without a radio. They don't need to because they go to a used auto place, used parts place somewhere. But anyway, we want to thank you for listening to the Christian Car Guy Show. By all means, please go to ChristianCarGuy.com. You can register for that chance to win the Red Roof Stay, but also find out about the Jesus Labor Love. Keep up with us, pray for us. And again, we're most of all grateful that you took the time to spend time with us today on the Christian Car Guy Show. God bless. Have a great week. Thank you for listening.